And I was like, what is this about? What?
That's okay though. For being so young, you're very, very smart. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work, man, and stay flat, okay?
Okay, I'm a flat earther. She couldn't do it. I'm a flat earther. I'm a flat earther. I'm a flat earther. I'm a flat earther. All she did was walk away. And I was like, what is this about? What?
That's okay though. For being so young, you're very, very smart. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work, man, and stay flat, okay?
Okay, I'm a flat earther. Couldn't do it.
Up for sound bites. This is awesome.
Grand Rising, everyone, and welcome back to Anti-Religious Scripture Study with Karen B. and Just Jack Flat Earth. Shabbat Shalom, Yom Tov.
Shabbat Shalom, Yom Tov. And yeah, it's almost Happy New Year as well. Next week. This morning we got new spring arrivals while we were setting up for today's channel. There's a dozen plus new baby chicks running around on our property. Didn't even know they were coming. Mama hen hid the eggs, and now they're running around.
That's so
pretty
funny.
Awesome. Definitely looking like spring around here. Definitely looking like the new year, new life. It's fantastic.
Yeah, excuse me. I'm just adjusting my mic.
No worries.
Stands. All right, cool. Yeah, that is so neat that you got a dozen baby chicks as a surprise this morning.
At least. Yeah, at least a dozen.
That's so cool.
Yep. I mean, we can really, you've been to my property. It's very covered with trees, and during the winter, like, you can see all the way through my property, and now it's starting to grow in to where this is my favorite time where it starts really filling in with the green. I like it a lot because of the privacy.
Oh, I know.
Right.
I know.
Like when it's bare, it's like, oh my gosh, people could like stand in the property behind me and look straight through to my house if they wanted to,
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the privacy.
I do too. When the leaves fall off the trees, there's a huge difference too, and then like I can almost hear everything that drives down the road, even though I can't see it. It
Right.
like echoes up the driveway, and it sounds like there's trucks driving up my driveway all winter. I can't stand it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something to be said about evergreens in that type of situation.
I like want to put a bunch of cedar trees all through the front of the property.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Yeah, it's I think that a lot of the issues with the growing is, of course, what the powers that should not be due to our environment. So by now it typically would have been already filled up, but I think it's a little bit stagnant because of manipulation of the natural realm. So
yeah,
like last night we had another cold snap.
Yeah.
It's just, this is not normal. It's not typical.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't know. I mean, April 15th is last frost in this area.
Right.
So we still have a couple of weeks.
Yeah. The thing is, though, is that there's usually a transition, where here it's like high highs and then low lows. That's not a very good transition.
Yeah, I mean, it did warm up to the point where everything started to bud in my yard, and then we got it went below freezing again, and then everything was all...
Yep. It's like, oh, we're coming out. Oh, I guess not. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I react the same way, too. Like, oh, it's nice enough I can go outside. Nope, I'm going back in.
Yeah, exactly. Oops.
You get a hard breeze, and it's like, nah, I'm good. All right, I'm going to read my disclaimer just to get that out of the way.
Alrighty.
Just Jack's disclaimer. To the religious: if you believe it's wrong to study scripture outside of your religion or denomination, if you believe your religious leaders or church fathers are incapable of having inherited anti-scriptural traditions of men, if you've already made up your mind about scripture, including the scripture shouldn't be studied at all, then this stream is not for you. To others, if you're open-minded to others' opinions, if you haven't made up your mind about scripture, if you've been turned off to religion but believe there's truth in scripture that may have been changed or hidden by religion, if you live according to scripture and like to dig in and discover more, then the stream is for you. We are looking at scripture in the original language using concordances or dictionaries for root words, as well as context from a non-religion perspective. We will as well have life experience discussion. We are not here to argue with others about theology or doctrine by the traditions of men, including Catholicism, Christianity, or Judaism. We will be discussing the importance of origins to show how religions contradict the scriptures. There you go. Alrighty.
And today we are wrapping up Genesis.
Yeah, and the official term before it got changed to Genesis, which Genesis is the Greek term of origin, like, that's fine and all, but it was originally Bereshit, which is translated as in the beginning in most translations. I translated as creation establishment because it begins with bara and ends with sheet, which is creation establishment. So we are, wrapping up with the very last chapter. The last chapter, 49, was about Yaakov, a.k.a. Yisrael, blessing his children that later became known as the 12 tribes of Yisrael. And there's a lot of poetic and, how can I say it, like analogies. I can't think of the word. Oh my gosh, not analogies, but symbolism, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of symbolism, and you have to like determine it for yourself because you don't want to be pigeonholed into what has already been established as the translation, because some of it you can actually possibly see something that's a little more in depth, or a characteristic that, attaches to you. There are some things in there that, make a lot of sense to me translated a different way, where it doesn't make sense to me in the way it's been translated. Even like something as simple as the wolf, where it just means the yellow thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's interesting concepts that, there's entire groups of people that actually make flags for the 12 tribes of Israel, or they make ornamentation on Israeli objects, and they have these symbols for what animal or what structure represents each tribe based on this chapter and its translation. And it kind of goes against scripture, because you're not supposed to be making any engravings of anything of the heavens above, or the earth beneath, or the waters beneath the earth, to honor them, right? To worship them, to, but there's a lot of homage, quote unquote, paid to the 12 tribes of Israel, when basically they're only in it because they were born of Israel, not because they had any special, they really didn't earn their place, so to speak. And some of the tribes, or some of the children of Israel, did some very bad things, and they were forgiven of it, but that doesn't make them, the special people, right? Like, that doesn't make them more, they can get away with it more because they're the children of Israel. It's not like that. There's obvious, through the chapters that we went through, there's obvious places where it's pointing out their shortcomings as human beings, and not as, holier than thou, so to speak, right? They were human. They had flaws, which a lot of people in religious circles look at that with a lot of different people, like with the Catholics, they have the saints, and with the Jews, they have the great rabbis, and it goes on and on like that, where they're honoring men, where men are honorable in how they, how they interact with people and the Creator, right? That's what makes them honorable. They're not special just because they're born special. And there's whole theologies built on, well, the reason that you're a righteous person is because you are predestined to be a righteous person. I don't believe that. I believe all of us have free will. I believe the Creator knows the end of both decisions, but he still gives you the decision. Like, he can see the whole thing played out in whichever decision you make, but you still have that choice. So, I mean, I believe there's a predestination of long-term things, but as far as individuals go, they have their choice on how their life is played out.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Because I definitely, there was a time in my life where I believe I was completely separated from the Creator, that I was destined to be evil and death. And thankfully, I came to the end of myself and gave myself up to the idea that the Creator, I didn't want to be the deity, and if you choose to be the deity of this realm, you can, but that's it. That's all you get. And I'm looking for the long run. I'm looking for eternity. So, all right. Anyway.
There you go. Delayed gratification pays off.
Totally.
All right.
Yeah, and I mean, there's deity-esque things that you receive just by connecting to the true Creator.
Totally.
So
manifestation is one of them.
Yes, exactly. Like, we're supposed to be co-creators of this realm.
Mm-hmm.
It's only when you take it upon yourself to say, I'm going to control everything, that's where it all goes chaotic. Like, you may have everything you want, quote unquote, but then your life is in shambles all around you.
Right.
So, anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry we got into philosophy there, but,
Yeah, a little bit. Oh, speaking of, just to get this out of the way, speaking of manifestation, Flattoberfest 2022.
Woo woo.
The date and time is set. It is happening October 22nd and 23rd, and we are back at the Shrine Club in Greenville, South Carolina this year. It's going to be a whole weekend, and it's going to be totally different than the last Flattoberfest. I have some cool ideas in store for this one. It's going to be like, I feel like Flattoberfest is growing into its own thing. I love it. This is going to be
Groovy.
fun. So I
And
just
just
putting that out there.
Just Jack Flat Earth is open for camping location because I am near the location. I'm within a half an hour, and you know, we're also going to be doing some recreational bang in the backyard.
Yes.
So you know, keep that in mind when getting ready for Flattoberfest. But it's a must come. If you haven't come before, the only people who hated Flattoberfest are the people who did not go.
Yeah.
Can I put it that way?
Yeah.
Because whenever you see anybody complaining about Flattoberfest or you hear anybody complain about Flattoberfest, it's because they didn't go. If you go, you realize the importance of coming together with like-minded individuals. It's not about a hierarchy. It's not about you know, just like the conversation we were just having. Nobody's more special than the other person. It's just some people investigate some subjects more than others.
Yeah.
And that's their thing. You know, like me, I became obsessed with translating scripture because I got sick of being lied to. You know, it had nothing to do with me. I'm not a special person. I buckled down, and that's what I was interested in. You know, so everybody's got their thing. And when you have the conversation with all these different people about all these different subjects, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You get edified, you get lifted up, you get empowered to keep going when it seems like the whole world is a bunch of, you know, crazy zombies.
Yeah.
You know, it's good to find people who can actually think and reason, and you know, you can look into other subjects that you didn't even think about before. So
That's right.
anyways,
All right.
yep, good stuff.
Question from Caleb Brooks. Do you go
All right.
with the Shabbat and each day starting with evening before or at dawn of the new day? Some people were saying Shabbat Shalom last night in a podcast, so what do you believe?
Yeah, so we discussed this like very early in the first couple of chapters. Critical Inception will be there. Woo woo. Yeah, a lot of people still hold true to the tradition of the day starting at sunset. However, the thing that changed my life about that is a friend of mine asked me, why do you start the day at sunset? And that was it. And I was like, you jerk. Okay. Because he knew that I was obsessed with searching the scriptures to validate my own belief system. So everything I believe now may change tomorrow if I read something that's different. And this was something that I painstakingly searched over for a couple of months because I didn't want to just jump on board and say, okay, the Sabbath is only during the daylight hours. But what I did is I looked up everywhere in the scriptures in the Old Testament, the Hebrew, everywhere where it said morning, evening, today, tomorrow, yesterday, night, day, you know, all these words that talk about when a day is or what a day consisted of. And what I found is there's a few places where it could go either way, you know, based on the context, but there's many locations where it could only be the daylight hours. Yom only includes the daylight hours. From Boker to Arev. Boker is the broken through seen light, and Arev is the mingled with darkness. So you could say Arev, being translated as evening, could also be translated as the breaking of dawn as well. So, you know, the mingling with darkness, that could be dawn to dusk, right? And the seen light part of the day, which is where you actually see the sun. So the Arev and Boker that is included in describing the day is there very clearly. And chapter 1, verse 1, chapter 1, day 1, very clearly distinguishes Yom is light. And he called the light Yom. That would mean not the dark time. That would mean the 6 days of work that he used to create the earth were during the daylight hours. He wasn't a midnight shifter. And I think that's not a natural thing to do. Not to say that people don't need to do that in this culture, because it sucks, and I've done it many times myself, but I'm saying we are not designed to work at night. And if you read about descriptions of people who are out at night, it's always bad throughout the description of Scripture. You know, the people who are robbing you, they're doing it at night. The people who are doing stuff in secret, they're doing it at night, right? And the only people that are supposed to work at night are the watchmen. So these are the people who would watch and take guard because the bad stuff happens at night, because we're not supposed to be night dwellers. And the reason, you know, part of the problem is, you know, I'm not saying that we should all be Amish, but I'm saying part of the problem is technology, that we have lights during all the night, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Before, it was quite an effort to illuminate an area at nighttime. Yes. Boker Tov is, yes, translated typically as good morning. But it's more like functional breaking of light. So that's more literal translation. And Frank Logic, I hope you got my text this morning, dude, because it's so amazing. I think it's one of the best ones. So, okay. Let's get into the chapter.
All right, yeah.
But look, I get asked this all the time also, just to throw it out there, is how do you know the Sabbath is a Sabbath? And look, you have to distinguish it for yourself. You have to judge for yourself. Don't take my word for it. But the way that I've felt about it, because I've looked into many calendars, many, okay, and I've researched them painstakingly because I don't want to be wrong. The way that I see it is 6 days you do all your work, and the seventh is a Sabbath. And it's been preserved not only, you know, just by, you know, 7 days a week, because they've tried to change it to a 3-day week, a 4-day week, and a 10-day week throughout history, and it never worked. The other thing is that throughout different cultures on the earth today, they still call that seventh day something similar to Shabbat. They all have the S, B, and T of the description of the word in their translation. So that's carried on as well. And there's also some, you know, claims, okay, I've not validated them, but there's also some claims that there are things in nature that literally rest on the Shabbat. So investigate that for yourself, you know, take it for what it's worth. All right. I'm good.
Okay. Chapter 50.
Chapter 50, the final chapter of Bereshit.
Bereshit, yes. Okay. And Yosef fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. Oh, we didn't even do a recap, but that's because Yosef, he dies at the end of the previous chapter, right?
You mean?
I mean, not
Yaakov.
Yosef, but Yaakov. Yeah, that's right. Yaakov.
Yeah, we mentioned that. I said it was very poetic and symbolic, you know.
Okay, that's right. Never mind.
Yeah. Yep. We didn't want, we read through it. We touched on some things, but we don't want to get too much into like a definitive translation, because there are things that could go, because of the context, they could be translated a few different ways, you know, because the context is not assured, because it's symbolic.
Mm-hmm. All right. And Yosef commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Yisrael.
So the healers, right? Not the physicians, right?
I know. It's like, that's a weird word. I feel like that word wouldn't have been around at that time.
No. What was? I'm looking at King James Version right now. KJV.
Let's see.
Yeah, they have physicians there. Yeah. Yeah. So that's probably where the Scriptures version grabbed it from.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's I don't think it would be physicians. They didn't go through 10 years of college,
right,
to do their profession.
Yeah.
All right.
And 40 days were completed for him. For so are completed the days of embalming, and the Mitzrites wept for him 70 days. 40
days of preparation of the body, and embalming is just the ripening smell. Okay, so they're actually going through the process of, you know, as the body becomes processed to return to the dirt,
right,
it begins to have an odor, and so the process would be every day replacing spices and oils and stuff. So they would treat the body with such respect as to taking care of it with the, you know, with the regard to, as if you were taking care of somebody alive, right? So they were actually doing like, you know, cleaning and rewrapping and stuff like that, like you would for somebody who was alive. Now, that's different from the Egyptians, because the Egyptians remove the innards so that the decomposition happens faster and it smells less. So.
Okay. And when the days of weeping for him were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found favor in your eyes, please speak in the hearing of Pharaoh, saying...
Yeah, and I think the found favor, you know, they've used that translation, but as I've pointed out before, it just means if I'm beautiful to you, if I'm beautiful in your eye.
Okay. Saying, My father made me swear, saying, See, I am dying. Bury me in my burial site, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. And now, please, let me go up and bury my father and return. And the Pharaoh said, Go up and bury your father as he made you swear. And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Mitzrayim.
All right, so here we still have where Joseph still has a lot of pull, right? He has a lot of authority. He's still second in command, and his father's dying, and his father's like, please don't bury me here, right? Bring me back to my father's grave, you know, where my father, my mother, my loved wife are buried. Yep.
And all the house of Joseph, and his brothers and his father's house, only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company.
All right, so the chariot is the rider, or the chariot, and the horseman is the spreaders. So these guys spread their legs to ride horses. They're the spreaders.
Okay, so they sit on the horse.
Right. Therefore, their legs are spread. Yes, exactly.
That's funny.
And it's the same word as when you squat to do your business. And, you know, and then by extension, when you create fertilizer from squatting, you spread the fertilizer. So it's all about spread.
That's funny.
Indeed.
Interesting how that works in this language. Okay.
Yep.
And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Yarden, and they lamented there with a great and very heavy lamentation.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
It just makes me laugh. They lamented with a very great and
heavy lamentation. Yes. All right.
And he performed 7 days of mourning for his father.
All right, so let's read this broken down. All right, so, and he witnessed the incoming of the floor, the Atad, which is the floor of Atad. Atad means thorn or thorn bush, that which crosses over the Yarden, and he mourned him there in that unseen place, from mourning magnified. So it was a magnified mourning. So he was very distraught, right? And heavy, grievous, very much. He does make the father of him flow away, and that's to flow away with tears of mourning. And an oath of 7, right? So an oath of 7 yom. So again, a week is an oath. It's a 7. That's why. That's another thing that, for me, like really determines like the preservation of that 7-day week. You know, the oath of creation. So he performed an oath of mourning for his father. So you would think lamented, lamentation, and mourning are all the same thing, but the lamented is actually the mourning, and the mourning is actually a flowing away, like a purging of your, when you're crying and stuff.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Indubitably.
And when the inhabitants of the land and the Canaanites saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, "This is a grievous mourning for the Mitzrites. This is why its name was called Avel Mitzrayim, which is beyond the Yarden."
Right. So in the land of Canaan, there should be nothing referred to as Mitzrayim, right? Because they're separate nations. They're separate tribes, if you will. So they're saying there was this big to-do where a bunch of Mitzrites came out to mourn. Now, they weren't actually Mitzrites. They were actually Yisrael, but they came from Mitzrayim. So they assumed that they were Mitzrayim, and the word there is that flowing away of the Mitzrayim. They're the crying. It's basically like if I could put it in today's moniker, it would be like they called the place Crying Egyptians. Right. So that is a very weird name for a place in the middle of the Canaan wilderness. But this is near the location of the cave where, the families are buried. And so remember when this was recorded, a lot of it was looking back and saying, oh, that place is called such and such. And the reason it's called such and such is because this happened earlier. Right. At the time that they went there, it wasn't called that.
Right.
But it's later called that because a bunch of Mitzrites, for some reason, went there to cry. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you have an explanation for the name of that area, for the crying Mitzrites.
Cool. And his sons did to him as he had commanded them. For his sons brought him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah.
Very good.
Before Mamre, which Avraham bought with a field from Ephron, the Hittite, as property for a burial site.
Hittite. Yep.
Hittite.
Yep.
And after he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Mitzrayim, he and his brothers and all who went up with him to bury his father.
I find it interesting that they keep referring to bought from the Hittite. It's like, just to remind you, that place belongs to us because we paid for it, It's like they reiterate that over and over again. Like, that burial site belongs to us. We paid for it. and when Abraham first attained it, they're like, oh, we'll just give it to you. And he's like, oh, no. Let me pay for it. Let me give you the price. Because then it's like established,
Yeah. All right.
You're at verse 15, yeah.
And when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "What if Joseph hates us and pays us back all the evil which we did to him?"
Right. So hold up for a second.
Okay.
So his brothers saw that their father's dead.
Right.
Now, are they talking to their father at all? Is there a conversation going to happen with their father? No.
Well, no.
He's dead.
Yeah, he's gone.
All right. So go ahead and keep reading.
And they sent word to Joseph saying, "Before your father died, he commanded, saying..."
They saw that their father was dead and they're like, oh, crap. Like, remember that thing we did to Joseph? Like, the only reason that, like, he hasn't kicked our butt is because dad was alive?
Yeah.
That's basically what they're saying there.
Yeah, they left him for dead.
Yeah.
All right. This is what you are to say to Joseph. I beg you, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of the Elohim of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him.
Man, that's some manipulation. That's some witchcraft right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so the thing is that Joseph had already forgiven them, right? He's basically like, look, what you intended for evil, Yah turned into good. Mm-hmm. So no matter.
Right.
And by the way, people take that verse out of context, and they basically, when people look into the history of where the modern Christian church got all their beliefs and stuff, and they find out that it has to do with pagan sacrifices and child orgies and such things like that, then they'll quote that verse: "What men intended for evil, Yah turned into good." Right? But that's not what the verse is talking about. They're talking about Yah took a bad situation and made it good, not that Yah wants you to take every bad thing and make it him. Like, okay, let's take, child sacrifices and make it all about the creator. No, you don't do that. So, yeah, there's people that will take that verse out of context, but he already forgave them. He already said, basically, look, I'm glad you're here. I got my brother here that I barely knew, and my father's coming, and
Plus, didn't he torment them?
yeah, he teased them a little bit,
He tormented them a little bit, right?
yeah, he did. Yeah, he made them nervous, quite a bit. Yeah, there's no reason for them to even assume that he's going to come after them.
But they feel guilty though, because they did bad things.
They do. They feel guilty. That's exactly right. Even years and years later, even though they've been living the swank life, they're nervous.
Yeah. All right. And his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, "See, we are your servants." And Joseph said to them, "Do not fear, for am I in the place of Elohim?" Okay, that's a question.
In other words, do I have the authority, to put judgment on you now, right?
Right. And you intended evil against me, but Elohim intended it for good, in order to do it as it is this day, to keep a great many people alive.
Yep.
And now do not fear, I provide for you and your little ones. So he comforted them and spoke kindly to them.
There you go. So there it is right there.
Mm-hmm.
You intended evil against me, not Yah turned evil into good.
Mm-hmm.
But Elohim intended it for good. And intended, go back to 20. So it's the thinking or the designing or the inventing. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you designed an evil against me, but he designed functional.
Right.
You designed a dysfunction, he designed a function. There you go.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. The death of Joseph. Oh boy. And Joseph dwelt in Mitzrayim, he and his father's household, and Joseph lived 110 years. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children to the third generation, the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were also born on Joseph's knees. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am dying, but Elohim shall certainly visit you and bring you out of this land to the land of which he swore to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob.
Now remember, like I said, when you're on your deathbed, it seems like you have more authority, more insight, more connection to the eternal existence,
Yeah, that makes sense. You're sort of getting closer to that part of the world. The spirit world.
Yeah, the transfiguration. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Joseph made the children of Israel swear, saying, Elohim shall certainly visit you, and you shall bring up my bones from here.
Okay, so he's saying, just like his father said, don't let my bones stay here. Yeah?
Right. And Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was placed in a coffin in Mitzrayim.
Okay, so now this is different. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The rest of his family were wrapped up and put in the cave. Here, he's put in a container. Not necessarily a coffin, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a order container, right? It's a container of order. And those of you who have not seen it yet, please check out Patterns of Evidence, the Exodus. and look at the most likely container of Yosef, because all of his brothers were put in tombs, but Yosef was put in a small pyramid. So, very interesting stuff.
Really?
Yes.
That is interesting.
Because it's like, why do we have 12 regular, like, square burial boxes, but then this one is made into a pyramid? And it's because he was second in command of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did they build a pyramid of him, but also a statue of him within the pyramid. So it's very interesting. But of course, it couldn't be him because it's the wrong timeline, right?
Right.
That's the whole that's the whole deal.
That is very interesting. I do want to go back and watch that movie now after reading through.
Yeah, it's going to make
Genesis.
so much sense to you now. Like, it's going to be like, oh, that's that one thing that we read about. Like, yeah. All right, so I'm viewing over chat now. That was the last verse, right?
That was it.
Okay. All right. 2. Don't mix the wineskins and the wine bottles. Yep. Don't mingle. The Creator is very much against mingling. Don't worship the way that you worship other deities and say it's unto me. He literally says that, and that's literally what the religion today is. Yeah, he hates mixing. Okay, so there's no more questions then. All right, just comments. But yeah, it's this is the culmination of the chapter. They're living swanky lives in Mitzrayim because Yosef was second in command. But like you and I discussed a little bit, this is important to know because I think that they get very comfortable in their swank lifestyle and they start mingling with the Mitzrayim more and more so that they lose connection to the Creator. And therefore, they lose favor with him until it says that they started crying out for him again. There's an expression today that is used that there's no atheist in a foxhole. In other words, when everything's swank and everything's good and you have everything you want, you don't really think about necessarily needing the Creator. But then if something goes really, really bad, there's a lot of people who would never even consider talking to the Creator. That's all of a sudden is like, please help me.
Right. Like, please, God, I'll do anything.
Exactly. I mean, I remember in my old life, there's been times where, I've hugged a toilet and I said, please, take this away from me and I'll never drink again or something.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's something to be said about, materialism, separating you from the Creator. If you're living in nature, if you're like, growing food for yourself instead of going to the grocery store, you have a much better connection to the creation, to the Creator, realizing that substance does not come from a brick and mortar, right? It comes from the actual miraculous, like this little tiny little dot, little pebbly looking thing, and you get it wet and it turns into this tree that produces this fruit. It's miraculous.
Yeah.
And that is, that should separate you from the materialism. So,
well, it should show you how abundant the earth is, like, naturally. When they tell you that there's, when they try to think that there's scarcity, like, there's no reason for anybody to be starving. Because from one seed, if you grow a garden, you can see from one seed you can get dozens of tomatoes. Yeah.
And then you can plant those tomatoes and get dozens more, right?
So, and it just multiplies.
Yeah, and that's another thing is like even, places with low water content, still you can grow plants. And, I believe that there's a water source everywhere that, they just make it to where you can't drill and you can't build something too tall, right, in our society because there's water there. You can get water from the air, you can get water from the ground, and it's just, this materialism makes you want wants you to be dependent on the system, right? On this controlling system where your electricity, water, food, like building materials. If you go to the store right now and buy lumber, it's insanely expensive right now. It is nuts. And when I instead of buying more lumber, I bought more tools because I'm going to start processing trees because like there's so many cool gizmos and gadgets these days. Like I just bought a chainsaw lumber mill. So
Did you?
that thing, yeah, that thing's going to be
come over
fun.
here with that.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. We're going to turn trees into lumber. It's going to be
fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah.
That is so cool. That's exactly what people should be doing, stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking of buying an actual lumber mill that costs thousands of dollars just to have it, but like I already have a couple of chainsaws, and to have this thing that you just attach to your chainsaw and you cut strips of lumber, it doesn't have to be square.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be 100% 90 degrees, just close. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
Awesome. I love that. I love stuff like that. I actually just bought myself a circular saw, and I'm building a bench for my mudroom.
Groovy. Yeah, so
Master builder gear, man.
Get your feet. Yeah, your feet too. Get your feet and hands dirty, folks.
Yeah.
Get away from the TV. Get away from the materialism. Go out and get dirty.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's up. That's how you really start connecting to nature and the Creator.
Yeah, I love it. I love going outside and doing stuff. I love it. Making things with your hands. Be constructive. Be productive. It's great.
And the satisfaction that you feel when you accomplish any of these things, like when you plant the seeds and you're not 100% sure they're going to grow, and you see that thing sprout out, you're like, yes, it's like it's an amazing feeling. And like, I just did a little bit of construction the other day. I built a deck sidewalk next to my driveway because when it rains, it's nothing but muddy and there's roots that trip you up, and I made a deck sidewalk, and when I was done with it I was like, that looks really good. I like that.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's fun stuff. So all right, y'all. Yeah, get dirty, build something, create something, invent something.
I finally hung a swing on my back porch.
Nice.
I got the swing up.
Yeah, because that is the hangout spot at your house for sure. So that's awesome. Yeah, maybe, I mean, we're talking about random stuff on this chat with a bunch of people watching, but maybe, once I get the lumber mill figured out, we could like build a gazebo in your backyard or something.
Dude, I'm totally
That'd be pretty
down.
tight.
I want a pyramid. I want to build a pyramid.
Well, you can put a pyramid on top of the gazebo.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because how awesome would that to be chilling under that pyramid shape? Because even just having the pyramid shape is supposed to funnel that energy. So even just sitting under a gazebo with a pyramid on top.
Yeah, and it's functional. I mean, as far as water goes, as far as sun reflection goes, there's a lot of functions to it. But and where it causes that resonance,
Mm-hmm.
Did you use lumber made from milling it yourself? No, I did not make it from. That's what I was just talking about how expensive lumber is, and that's why I bought the chainsaw mill. I wish I had it before I started the deck because it cost a lot of money to make. It was let's see,
600.
32 linear feet of 3-foot wide deck, and it cost over $600. So that sucked.
Yeah, man, I had to buy a 2x4 that was 10 foot long to hang my swing, and that one 2x4 was like $24.
Yeah, it's nuts.
They used to be like $8 or $10 or some shit.
Yeah, I mean,
weren't they? I mean, I feel like they weren't that much.
When I first moved to South Carolina, they had a sale, and they were they weren't 10 feet, they were 8 feet because it's typical construction when you're framing walls and stuff to use 8-foot lumber, and they were $5 a board, $5 for 8 feet. 2x4. So
Yeah, lumber's gone up a lot.
And now the 8-footer, like $15-16 for an 8-footer. It's insane. But yeah, when I do start building stuff with the lumber, I'll share it. I'll share pictures and stuff online.
Totally. We should make a video of you making lumber with it.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
People love that shit.
Next week begins the new year, and I was thinking maybe we start with Exodus, but maybe I take some clips from the video from the movie that we were talking about, and we'll discuss it for informational purposes only, not for copyright,
Right.
Because we talked about that too. So we'll see. Maybe it'll be Exodus 1. Maybe it'll be excerpts from Patterns of Evidence. We'll see. Mm-hmm. But it will be the new year. I'll be searching for the renewed moon on that Shabbat evening. So it'll be, fun times.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here with us. We appreciate you joining us every Saturday, every Shabbat. So Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Keep it flat and have a restful day.
Yes, please do.
And we will see y'all later. All right.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.